Imagine discovering that one of the worst people in your town, the man everyone is hunting, the man responsible for 5 murders, is your father. Now imagine that one of those victims was your best friend. And then imagine that instead of asking what you knew, people begin deciding that you must have known. That is where the Death Row Club begins. Not with the question of whether evil exists, but with something more uncomfortable. What happens to the innocent people who share its last name, Nicola? Fischer has already lost more than her father by the time the story truly opens. Her father has been exposed as a serial killer. Her best friend is dead. Her job is gone. Her community looks at her differently. And the true crime machine that helped expose the killer has transformed Nicola from grieving daughter into public suspicion. The woman at the center of that machine is Greer Woods, host of the hit true crime show To Catch a Killer. Greer had entered Nicola's life as someone who seemed to understand. Then the cameras rolled, the arrest happened, and suddenly Nicola was left, asking whether that friendship had ever been friendship at all. Then Greer contacts her again, not with an apology, with an invitation, the Death Row Club, a private annual retreat in the wilderness for adults whose parents were serial killers. It sounds grotesque when you first hear it, almost like something designed for television, but psychologically, the idea makes terrible sense. Imagine constantly meeting people who know the worst fact about your family before they know anything about you. Imagine every new friendship eventually requiring the same disclosure. Imagine loving a parent while also knowing what that parent did. The club offers something ordinary people cannot. No explanation required. Nicola goes. The retreat is isolated. Phones are collected. The group is small. And for a brief period, something remarkable happens. Nicola begins to belong. These people have made different choices about their parents. Some have severed ties. Some have not. Some hide their history. Some have built their identities around surviving it. But all of them understand a strange form of inheritance. They did not commit the crimes. Yet the crimes entered their lives anyway. Then someone unexpected arrives, a young woman claiming that she belongs among them too. She says her father is a killer, but she was not part of the retreat. She was not supposed to be there, and her arrival changes the temperature of everything. The next morning, she's gone. By the afternoon, one of the club members is dead. What had felt like sanctuary becomes a closed circle of suspicion. And now the very thing these people came to escape becomes the evidence used against them. Their parents. Think about the cruelty of that for a moment. If 6 ordinary people were trapped somewhere after a murder, we would examine their behavior, their motives, their opportunities, but put the children of serial killers in the same room, and another idea arrives before evidence does. Maybe it runs in the family. That thought sits underneath the entire novel. Not simply, who is the killer? But why are we so ready to believe one of them could be? The book repeatedly plays with the stories people build around the past. Memory is especially important. Once you learn that someone you loved was capable of terrible things, old memories begin changing shape. A strange look becomes a warning sign. A childhood argument becomes evidence. Silence becomes sinister. Events that once seemed ordinary get rewritten by what you know now. This is one of the most psychologically interesting ideas in the story. We like to believe memory is an archive. Often it is an editor. New information walks backward through our lives and changes what earlier moments seem to mean. That is why children of notorious criminals face an almost impossible psychological task. They are not only grieving what happened, they are reconstructing who their parent was, and sometimes reconstructing who they themselves were beside that person. Then there is Greer. Because the Death Row Club also turns its attention toward true crime culture. True crime promises justice, answers, and exposure. Sometimes it provides all three. But what happens to the living people converted into characters along the way? Nicola's father deserves accountability for what he did. But does Nicola deserve public punishment for being his daughter? Does proximity create responsibility? Does love for a guilty person make you morally contaminated? The novel refuses to make those questions comfortable. Some characters maintain relationships with criminal parents. Others cut them off. One hides her family history from the people closest to her. None of those decisions fits neatly inside a single moral rule. And that may be the deeper purpose of the club. Not to decide whose parent was worst, but to exist somewhere, briefly, where nobody has to defend the fact that family love can survive beside horror. Then murder enters that space, and suddenly, the sanctuary becomes an experiment. Every secret becomes suspicious. Every disagreement acquires a second meaning. Every character is forced to confront the possibility that the world's ugliest assumption about them may finally have evidence behind it. This is where the title becomes more than a clever thriller premise. Because Death Row Club describes more than their parents. In another sense, these children have spent their lives waiting for judgment from neighbors, employers, partners, strangers online, sometimes from themselves. The obvious nature versus nurture question is, can evil be inherited? But I think the book points toward a more interesting question. What if the thing most likely to be inherited is not evil, but expectation? Tell a child long enough that they come from something rotten, and they may spend their entire life organizing themselves around that accusation. Some will run from it. Some will hide it. Some will rebel against it. Some may become obsessed with proving it wrong. But even rejection can leave the original story at the center of your life. That is what makes the Death Row Club more than a locked room thriller. Its most disturbing inheritance is not violence. It is identity. A parent can commit a crime. A court can sentence them. But the social sentence can spread far beyond the person who committed it. To children, partners, families, people who never chose any part of it. And perhaps that is the human truth underneath this story. You can inherit consequences without inheriting guilt. You can love someone without defending what they did. And you can come from darkness without owing the world a lifetime of proof that you are different. The real question is not whether the apple falls far from the tree. It is whether we allow the apple to become something the tree never was. So consider this. If everyone expected you to become the worst thing your parent ever was, how much of your life would you spend proving them wrong? This is Soul Pages English. We don't just ask what happened in a story. We ask what the story reveals about us. Subscribe for cinematic books, psychological mysteries, and the human truths hiding beneath unforgettable stories.